Hey, FinCon fam, this is Bethany Bayless, and thank you so much for joining us for one of the very first Facebook Lives of 2019. Be expecting a lot more of these from week to week. And today I'm so excited to kick things off with the founder of Millennial Money, author of Financial Freedom, and a really great friend of mine, Grant Sabatier. We're going to be talking about blogging in the new year, what it looks like for 2019, and we're going to touch a little bit on the brand new generation of bloggers that we see emerging in this community. So without further ado, please help me welcome Grant Sabatier. Hey, Grant, how are you?
Good. It's good. It's great to be on.
I am so excited for you and just what you're doing and all the things. And you have been blogging for a little bit of time. How long have you been blogging, and tell us all that good stuff?
Yeah, so this will be 4 years this year. Started Millennial Money in 2015, in the middle of the year. So about 3.5 years in, almost to that 4-year mark.
So your blog is like a senior in high school.
Yeah, I'd say that. I think that's a
Or
good.
maybe college, about to graduate.
Yeah, no, I often feel like my blog is like the like child that I really over invested in for a period of time, and then I neglect it certain periods and then need to give a lot of love. So it's like a constant, it's like one of those things where like sometimes there's a lot of love, sometimes there's not. And yeah, I have a complicated relationship with my blog, actually.
I feel like that's a whole nother interview. We could just
Totally.
how
Yeah.
do you feel about that?
I know. I'm
Uh,
like, let me open my heart to you right now about how I feel about my blog. You're like, cut it
well,
out.
and I feel like it's something that it's very unique to you, but at the same time, a lot of people face those issues. They face the exact same things of like, I don't know how I feel about my blog or what it means about me. And you and I had discussed briefly, and I would love to dive more into it, of just how blogging is different for 2019 and kind of a new generation of blogging that's rising up, whether that's what you've seen over since you've started blogging or even longer than that.
Yeah, so I think blogging has definitely changed a lot, especially in the personal finance space. There's a lot more blogs. With that being said, I know, I've chatted with, Nick, True, and PT about this. There's 7 billion people in the world, and a lot of them need help and advice around money. And so there's plenty of opportunity. But with that being said, there's still a small percentage of people that pay attention to money. And so I think it's both an incredible opportunity, but B, a little bit more challenging today to get noticed. With that being said, I think defining what you want to get out of your blog is really, really important. So I always viewed my blog as a platform. I've made money 21 different ways with the blog since I launched it in 2015. And I always thought about it as a platform to reach a broader base of people, but to ultimately get me a book deal and start reaching the mainstream. And so I was using it as a pathway, not just to make money, but and so knowing where I wanted to go made trade-offs a lot easier in terms of, do I go down this route or that route? And we can talk about this because I really think that a lot of bloggers are trying to go too many different ways at one time. And I really only see two ways to go in 2019. And one way is you can do what I call and this is personal finance specific. You can do what I call the penny hoarder model, or which is essentially, okay, we're going to write a lot of content. We're going to rank well on Google. We're going to focus on affiliate. We're going to wake up every day and try to get the biggest reach and make the most money possible out of our blog. And those blogs are the penny hoarder, the well-kept wallets, the wallet hacks, the dollar sprouts. They're very focused on the investor junkies. They're very focused on maximizing the return on each click. And then there's the other camp, which I'd call truly distinctive voices. They're the people that you're going to show up and you want to listen to. This way, the dollar sprout penny hoarder method, way to make a lot of money. Probably could make more money this way, but this way is, you're vulnerable, you're open, you're telling your story, and there are pros and cons with each approach. The challenge is I see a lot of bloggers trying to do both, and that's where it gets messy. It's what I call the muddy middle of blogging, where you're kind of sharing your story, but you're also really trying to optimize everything, and it gets in this gray area where a lot of bloggers, their blogs start looking the same, or they're over reliant on, for example, Google traffic, and then their rankings get hit. And in reality, you can either like please Google, or you can please the reader, or you can try to do a hybrid of both. But the hybrid is very, very difficult. And I chose this method. I experimented with, I'd say, the penny hoarder model, but I definitely chose this method where from day one, I was very open with my story, my shortcomings. I was very vulnerable. I held nothing back, because at the end of the day, people are going to come back. You have to think about blogging, any type of vlogging content, podcast. People are going to come back because they like the way that you see the world. And so you
Yeah.
have to share how you see the world, and kind of leave it all on the floor in a lot of ways. And I see people trying to be a person who they really aren't, or trying to copy someone else. And life's too short to copy someone else. You can learn from them and assimilate what they're doing, but you have to tell your story. And you also have to craft your story. I think 2019 is going to be the year of the story, where
Mhm.
people are going to pay attention to the truly unique voices that are within any type of blogging community. And it's very hard to do both of these things simultaneously at the same time. And both of them have benefits depending upon where you want to go. You want to make as much money as possible. The penny hoarder model, without a doubt, the best choice. If you want to be a person and a brand, and you want your email subscribers to show up for you and build a community, the more vulnerable model is kind of the play.
And it's not to say that the vulnerable path can't eventually make money, right? Like it's totally different kinds, different methods, but maybe that one might take a little bit more time, or it require just a little bit more sacrifice. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're just making money different ways. So
Right.
instead of making money on just like affiliates, you're making money on brands, partnerships, speaking opportunities, and consulting opportunities, and being an advisor, and that type of thing, or writing books, for example. The challenge is when, like I said, you try to muddy the two.
Mhm.
And that's when it can get messy. So based on what your ultimate goal is, if you want to be a brand, if you want to be a known thinker and a person, you're going to have to do, they're both really hard to do, but it's different types of work.
And I love that because it requires an honest conversation with yourself,
Hmm.
right? Just sitting down and saying, all right, what am I doing this for? What's my why? What do I have to offer that maybe not everyone has to offer, but also still be true to myself and my story and who I am. And it just takes honesty and transparency with yourself before you even start blogging, right?
Yeah, with yourself, and realizing that, like anything in life, you're going to have a much higher chance of being successful if you like or love what you're doing.
Mm,
And that's the thing I see far too many people. This was my session last year at FinCon. I was like, if you're just here for the money, it's going to be a hard road for you. There are easier ways to make money than blogging. If you're here because you want to tell your story, you're fascinated by this new medium, and even if you're not making money, you haven't made a single dime in a year, and you'd still be doing this, then you're in the right place. Then,
yeah.
because I think that people get into it expecting it to be easy, and it's not easy. I spent over 1,000 hours writing before I made my first, $100 blogging. I would still be blogging today, even if I never made a dime. I kind of fell in love with the challenge of I call it making money from air. Where it's just like, I'm like, wow, like, this is so crazy. And so I fell in love with that process while I was doing it, while I was telling my story. But you only have so much time in life, and it's so much better spent doing something that you feel you're called to do and you want to do, and you're truly curious, not just chasing the dollar sign. Because if you're doing it in the right way, people will show up and you'll make money. And if you do it for a year and they don't, I got asked this question the other day from a blogger. They're like, "Hey, I've been doing that a year. I've been putting out 3 posts a week, and my traffic's just really not growing, and my email subscribers aren't growing. What should I do?" And I said, "Well, it's clear the numbers don't lie. I mean,
Mm.
what you're doing is not working, and you've tried it for a year. And so now the big question is being honest with yourself about maybe I need to do a huge pivot, or why isn't this working?" Over the last 4 years of blogging, I could talk about that, but you get to these inflection points, and then you have a really hard decision where it's like, okay, do I see potential? Do I continue doing this? And now my big challenge is I'm at another inflection point where the blog makes money, but money is no longer like my goal with the blog. And so I actually have to leave money on the table at the expense of having my time to do other things like write the book. I took off 9 months of blogging to write the book. And at that time, I lost 30% of my traffic. My email subscribers, some of them went cold. I had to say, I'm pausing this because I'm going to write a book and play the longer game. But if you stick with it and you have your goal in mind, those first couple of years are the hardest. And then you either hit that inflection point or you realize that you're not going to. And if you're not going to, you have to be honest with yourself and pivot. But if you do, then it's a nice ride. That's why you see the Jeff Roses of the world and the, Robert Farringtons and these guys who've been doing it 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They're just crushing it. Because they've hit that, or Deacon Hayes hit that inflection point last year, and then they're just killing it. So
well, and it's almost funny because sometimes people can see that as like an overnight success of like, oh my goodness,
oh gosh.
But it takes years and years and years and years of the hustle and keep grinding and keep doing it and keep going back every day. And you said that you quit 3 times. I think a lot of people can really relate to that. I've wanted to give up so many times. I've wanted to, just say, all right, let's just get a regular 9 to 5. That would be so much easier. But where do you find just either the motivation or the restart or just the perseverance to just keep on going?
That's a great question. The motivation, so I quit 3 times and the motivation came in different forms each time, but ultimately it was either one, the first time I stopped, Robert Farrington from College Investor reached out and wanted to buy Millennial Money. And I was like, oh gosh, I've got to kick this into high gear. So I started writing again. And then the second time that I wanted to give up, I actually stopped and readers started emailing me, like a lot of them, where'd you go? When are you going to post next? What happened? And it was the love from them that kept me going. And then the third time that I wanted to quit, I was basically like, I don't know if I have anything more to say about money. I've written, now over 500,000 words about it. I've done, almost 1,000 interviews. It's just like, what else do I have to say that keeps it interesting for me? And what's gotten me through that is realizing that it's no longer about the tactics. I used to think it was all about the tactics. And now I realize, so since I started, I've had over 17,000 reader emails. They're all in a Gmail folder of just like, thank you, all different types. And I went through those as I was like feeling really down after I finished the book, because I was like, do I want to keep blogging? Do I want to keep making this happen? And the number one thread through all of those emails was, you inspired me, or this inspired me, or, you were an inspiration, like the inspiration factor, which I realized that I was no longer fulfilling the role of just like, here's how to do something. Me being me was helping people like, have motivation for their day when they listen to their podcast or when they read a post or an email. I actually started finding that like the less that I emailed, the higher my open rates, because it was like people were really waiting for, what kind of I had to say. And that was like, now it's no longer for me about just sharing the tactics around money, because I feel like I can just be like, read Financial Freedom. Literally everything I think about money is in this book. And that's one of the reasons I wrote it too, because I get so many questions about everything. And I spent so much time like, here's this post, check this out. And now I just be like, read the book. If you read the book and you still have a question, there's a private Facebook group and I will like totally help you out. But read the book first. But now I realize that I'm playing a different role. And so understanding that, now my relationship with the blog has changed completely. And I'm very inspired to use it as a platform to kind of bring that light to people who are struggling around money. And I no longer feel obligated to kind of share the ins and outs of the tactics because I've written the book.
I love that, because I think that, again, so many people can relate and just, they know what it's like to be burnt out, to say, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore, going back and having that honest conversation with yourself, finding inspiration, building that community around you. And I just want to focus on that real quickly, the community of FinCon and this whole little brotherhood that we have, brother and sisterhood of people. How has that played a role in where you are, where you're going, etc.?
Yeah, so FinCon completely changed my life, and there's a few reasons. So the first time I came in 2015 in Charlotte, and it was, I'd launched Millennial Money, but I hadn't written many posts, and I was like, if I'm going to spend my life doing this and put my time into it, I want to understand other people who do it. And so I showed up. I didn't talk to a single person, and I really analyzed the market opportunity, and I saw a way that I could be distinctive in the space. And so it helps me very clearly see, where I could play and that there were other people doing this. I was so nervous that I didn't talk to anyone. I remember like sitting in Stephanie O'Connell's session, and like his and her money session. And like, I was just like, I was like, I can't talk to anyone. I'm like such a natural introvert. I've had to work very hard at overcoming that, and blogging and speaking has helped me immensely with that. But then I kept coming back to FinCon, and once I launched, I finally found, I've never had a community in my entire life that I felt sort of more supported and like I belonged than FinCon. I'm a money nerd, and it's pretty much all money nerds, so you can talk about that. I love, the challenge of creating. I love creating. It's something that I'm only happy kind of when I'm growing and creating and being around other creators who are that inspired. And then I just get so much energy from collaboration.
What kind of people did you naturally gravitate towards? And what kind of people did you think were better for your growth that you wouldn't have gravitated towards in the first place, but found this is very helpful for me?
That's a good question. So I'm an intense, passionate person, and I really gravitate to people who are passionate also. I also really like and have consumed, obviously, a lot of personal finance content. So I like distinctive voices. I was very, very excited to, spend time with JD Roth that year. The second year that I went. Now JD and I are friends. Get Rich Slowly was the first personal finance blog I ever read. The first person, after starting my FI journey, I was alone kind of for 2 years. The first person that I discovered in my FI journey was Brandon from Mad Fientist. Got to know him. Now he's a friend. Erin Laurie, is in New York City here with me. I'm a huge fan of hers. I think Broke Millennial is one of the best sort of beginner money books that's ever been written. I've at this point now read over 400 money books. And so I love just like all the cool stuff that different authors are doing. So I was really happy at first to meet those people that I really looked up to. Actually, I remember seeing JD Roth in 2015, and I was like, I couldn't even say anything to him. I had to wait an entire year to introduce myself. And I was chatting with him yesterday, but it's one of those things where like, these are people I really looked up to them. And then I was like, really wanted to, I think the bar was set really, really high, so I saw these bloggers who set the bar really high and gave me something to shoot for.
I see, and you just mentioned it, a new
Totally.
generation kind of rising up, but they're doing things very differently than maybe the generation that's been blogging for 10 years have been doing. Do you notice any specific changes that the new generation is doing that we can, get on board with, maybe shift things a little? Because one of my favorite analogies is that when they roll out a brand new jet in like the Air Force or something, oftentimes they want the brand new baby pilots to fly it so that they can come at it with a fresh set of eyes, a
Sure.
fresh new way to do things. And so how are these new jets, the new jet of blogging, if you
Yeah.
will, and what are the new fresh set of eyes that you're seeing?
I think what's changed is, Instagram for one is just completely dominating the game. So much so that like, I think I've had an Instagram account for like 7 years. I didn't use it for 5 years. I finally reluctantly like launched one, and I'm, obviously like playing around with it, but I realized like, for me, Instagram is such a closed ecosystem that it actually doesn't drive much website traffic. I think for a lot of people, they want it to and it won't, because Instagram is all built around keeping you in Instagram. And the only way you can really get out, obviously, if you get 10K followers, but even that, they've shown that the click-through rates for 10K followers are significantly less than running Instagram ads. And so you kind of got to pay to get people where you want them to go. And so people are building these huge Instagram followings, which now are tough to monetize in a lot of ways. But there are some people like, the finance twins, like they're a great example. Those two guys, just like Instagram, their Instagram game is like just next level. I'm just like every time I see one of those images they make, I think with Bitmoji, I just laugh. And, it's incredible what they're doing. And they have a huge following and it's growing rapidly. And same thing with like Jamila, in Journey to Launch. She just crushes Instagram. She's always like tagging me in stories. And then like, I'm always too slow to get, there to see what she put in her story. And like, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things I was like, oh man, like maybe I'm too old for this now, or maybe I'm just focused on another goal, which I think it's more of that. I think that social media is a double-edged sword. I think that a lot of people are trying to mimic what others are doing, and it's even harder to get attention there, and it's going to be even harder to monetize an audience there. And then the video space, there's just so much happening in video right now. I think the podcast space is becoming a little bit saturated. But with that being said, more people are showing up to podcasts all the time. I love seeing, some of the short format stuff that's out there. Like that was one of the things, my first podcast was 5 minutes. At the time, it was like the only 5-minute personal finance podcast, and, Popcorn Finance, now he's crushing it, does an awesome job. And, there's just so many cool things, people building awesome tools. That's another thing. Like these 23-year-olds can like code in 6 languages. And you're like, not only is this article incredible, but like, here's this insane calculator that's going to show you every single thing about your life. Like Zach from 4 Pillar Freedom. I'm a huge fan of his work. One of his charts actually made it in the Financial Freedom book, and his tools are just incredible. And you're like, he's like sitting in a coffee shop building these incredible tools. And back in the day, it was like Chris from Keep Thrifty, who was building like, next level calculators, and, all that stuff's just evolving so rapidly. And now the last thing is there's clearly all of these like hidden underground blogger private Facebook groups for like all this ninja stuff's happening. And so like occasionally like, people, it's so funny because it moves so fast. And so people will reach out and be like, like there's this one group that I got invited to. It's 170 bloggers, like most of them in the FinCon community. And they're like, hey, we're huge fans of yours, Grant. Like we want you to join, and da-da-da. So like I joined, and then I did like a video, like a live Facebook Live with them. And they were all like so loving and cool, but they do the craziest stuff, like all this stuff with Quora and Reddit and, all these things. And like, they're mixing this and that. And I'm just like, I don't know what you guys are doing here. But it's incredible. So like those support groups and sub support groups are really out there. And they weren't when I started at all. It was like, you'd maybe get in a Skype, or a hangout with a couple people, or there was a few of those, but now it's so easy to cross collaborate and pollinate that you see a rapid acceleration of what is possible. And so if you have a clear vision and you're willing to collaborate, that's the name of the game, because getting a good group of people are going to help you get to the next level so much faster.
When do you know when it's time to hire someone or to team with someone or partner with someone? Because towards the end of our conversation, we're talking about there's so much to know and to do, and you're not going to be good at all of it. You're going to have strengths and weaknesses, and then partnering with someone else who has the different strengths and the different weaknesses that complement yours. So one, when do you know when to hire? And two, how do you find someone that can complement you like that?
I think hiring and partnering are 2 different things. So I didn't hire Cody. Cody is coming on in a partnership way in a few of the things that I'm creating. It's different. He has, skin in the game, in a few different ways. So it's not just like, hey, pay you to do this, come on my tour, organize my tour. Like Cody, I saw massive and see massive potential, love the way he sees the world. Like for me, I always want to partner with people that inspire me, because that gives me energy. You know what I mean? Like that's why I'm doing this with Jamila. I love creating with Jamila. I love creating with Bobby. I love creating with JP Livingston. I love creating with Cody. And so the partnership is like people that are going to help you think about things in different ways. And hiring is something different. Hiring is like more kind of transactional. So like, Tanya manages my podcast, and, she's like so incredible and is really awesome and like made me a better podcaster, which is something like I've held off on getting a podcast editor forever. I was like doing it and I wanted to control all the variables, and she has made me a better podcaster because she's like, you should ask questions in this way, and you pop here and you did this, and hey, stop doing that. And I'm just like, what? This is like so high value. And so that's been really helpful. There's someone who manages my membership community who's really, really helpful, and still holding off on the VA. The VA thing is like so, I've tested some and I'm just like, I think I'm too much of a control freak. But, I also at the same point, there can be a downside to hiring too many people. When I had my digital marketing agency, I had 22 employees, and I was responsible for them, and that stressed me out. And so in building this next generation of, millennial money and, the financial freedom book, I'm focusing more on surrounding myself with partners than hiring people, because I want people to have stakes in things, and so they take ownership of them, and I don't have to worry as much about like keeping someone that works for me happy. So
That's a
that's my
great,
mindset now.
yeah, that's a great distinction, because it does mean that they have skin in the game. They're more motivated to succeed as a team instead of, all right, well, I got my paycheck, I can go kind of thing. And so I love that we have people in our lives that, we partner with, and it's made us better. And so I so appreciate that. And we're talking just a little bit about how your blog is becoming a new generation. And we kind of joked a little earlier that it's like, is about to graduate high school, but you're graduating high school because you have something really exciting coming out. So let's talk about that really briefly.
Oh yeah. So my book, which would not have been possible without FinCon and all the amazing community, I actually thank at least 25 FinCon bloggers, maybe more, in the acknowledgments, who've all helped me in so many ways. So Financial Freedom, A Proven Path to All the Money You Will Ever Need, out February 5th worldwide. It's on Penguin Random House. This book is like, it's 100x any blog post I've ever written. I actually am contemplating retiring from traditional blogging, simply because I can't match what this. One of the things I wanted to do is none of this is recreated content. And so it's not like I just took blog posts and repurposed it. Penguin was very specific that I had to write it all from scratch. It all had to be new. And now it's like when people are like, oh, I really like this blog post, I'm like, gosh, the book's so much better. And now I'm like literally telling people like, don't read the blog, just read the book. So I'm really excited because, still a minority of people in this country read blogs, or listen to podcasts. And so having something that, someone, if someone who's struggling with money, that you can just like leave it casually on the kitchen table or just hand it to them.
Christmas present, birthday present.
Yeah, Christmas, all those things. What a journey. If you want to write a book, think twice about it, because it's make sure you really want to write a book, just like you should make sure you really want to write a blog or create a YouTube channel, because life's too short to, waste your time doing something that you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah. And it really all boils down to the fact that you are changing people's lives. And that's why anybody in this community, anybody doing something we're trying to make a dent on the world to change lives. And you're a testament to that, but also the fact that you are in turn giving back and changing other people's lives.
So one thing that I want to leave you with is, during my entire 20s, everyone asked me kind of, what's your why and what's your passion and what's your purpose in life? And I never had an answer for them. And honestly, that question, it really actually stressed me out. And I want to encourage you, even if you don't know your why, or your purpose in life, or your mission, that's okay, because a lot of people don't. I didn't. And sometimes it's kind of hard to chase. what your purpose in life will be. Sometimes you just have to create the time and space in your life for it to show up. And so the beautiful thing about blogging, vlogging, podcasting, it's all a reflection of you. It's all a way to reflect on your life and what it means to be alive and what it means to be human and what it means to connect and grow. And so take that seriously, because if you give your all to it, you're going to learn so much about not only the world, but more importantly about yourself. And for me, my purpose in life showed up. It was an email in 2016, October 2016. I remember it. Melanie, and she said, you know, you changed my life this year. I saved $13,000, and you probably saved my marriage. On behalf of my family and all the readers out there, I just want to thank you. And that email filled me with so much more joy than any amount of money that I'd made, that it was at that moment that I knew that this was what I wanted to do and this was my purpose in life. So even if you don't know, continue to question, continue to grow, and continue to create, because it's that process of creating that ultimately, at least for me, opened up the door for my life purpose to show up. So I encourage you, keep creating, keep growing, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Grant. I so appreciate that. And thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. If you have any questions for Grant, where can they find you?
Financialfreedombook.com. Check out the book. Don't ask me any money questions. Read the book first. If you want to chat about blogging, at Millennial Money on Twitter is a great place to reach me. At Financial Freedom on Instagram. And yeah, look forward to hearing from you and can't wait for FinCon this year.
Awesome. I'm so excited. It's going to be awesome. All right. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.